the teaching most people underestimate. Among all the teachings of Jesus, few appear more often than forgiveness. Again and again, he returns to it. Forgive your enemies. Forgive 70 times 7. Pray for those who hurt you. Love those who oppose you. To many people, these teachings sound moral, ethical, religious. But what if forgiveness was more than morality? What if Jesus understood something deeper? Something about the relationship between resentment, suffering, and inner freedom. Because when we look closely, forgiveness is not simply about the other person. It is about what happens inside the one who refuses to let go. And perhaps this is why forgiveness appears at the center of so many teachings. Not because it benefits only others, but because it transforms the one who practices it. Why resentment holds power. Every painful experience leaves an imprint, a betrayal, a rejection, a humiliation, a loss. The mind remembers, and often it remembers for protection. The logic is simple. If I remember the pain, I won't be hurt again. But something unexpected happens. The memory remains active, not physically, but psychologically. The event ends, yet its influence continues. Again and again, the mind returns to it, replays it, analyzes it, defends against it. The past begins occupying the present, and energy that could be used for growth becomes trapped in repetition. Why forgiveness is not approval. One of the greatest misunderstandings about forgiveness is the belief that it excuses wrongdoing. It does not. Forgiveness does not declare that harm was acceptable. It does not deny justice. It does not erase consequences. Instead, forgiveness changes the relationship between the person and the wound. Without forgiveness, the wound remains psychologically active. With forgiveness, the wound loses its control. The event may still be remembered, but it no longer dominates consciousness. The invisible weight of unforgiveness. Imagine carrying a heavy stone every day. Eventually you stop noticing its weight. Not because it became lighter, but because you became accustomed to carrying it. Resentment works similarly. Many people become so familiar with anger that they mistake it for identity. So familiar with bitterness that it feels normal. So familiar with blame that they cannot imagine life without it. Yet every unresolved resentment consumes attention. And attention is one of the most valuable resources a human being possesses. Why Jesus connected forgiveness to freedom. When Jesus spoke about forgiveness, he was speaking about liberation. Because resentment binds awareness to the past, keeps consciousness returning to old injuries, old arguments, old losses, old disappointments. Forgiveness breaks that cycle, not by changing history, but by releasing attachment to it. The past remains, but the psychological chain weakens, and freedom begins. Forgiveness and inner healing. Healing often begins when resistance ends. Many people spend years fighting memories, suppressing pain, avoiding difficult emotions. But healing requires awareness. The wound must be seen clearly, acknowledged honestly, and then gradually released. Forgiveness becomes one of the most powerful forms of release, because it allows emotional energy to move again, instead of remaining frozen in old experiences. Why forgiving yourself is often harder. Many people can eventually forgive others, but struggle to forgive themselves. Old mistakes, poor decisions, regrets, failures. The mind replays them repeatedly, creating guilt, shame, self-condemnation. Yet self-forgiveness is not denial. It is recognizing that growth requires compassion. Without compassion, people become trapped in endless self-punishment, and transformation becomes impossible. The connection between forgiveness and peace. Peace cannot coexist with constant resentment. The two move in opposite directions. One expands awareness, the other contracts it. One releases, the other clings. This is why forgiveness often feels difficult at first, because letting go feels like surrender. But eventually people discover something surprising. They are not surrendering power, they are reclaiming it. What happens when forgiveness becomes a way of life? When forgiveness becomes habitual, perception changes. People become less reactive, less defensive, less controlled by old wounds. Relationships improve. Attention becomes available again. Creativity returns. Presence deepens. Life feels lighter, not because challenges disappear, but because unnecessary burdens are no longer carried. The forgotten healing teaching. Perhaps forgiveness was never merely about morality. Perhaps it was one of the deepest healing teachings Jesus ever shared. A path away from bitterness. A path away from psychological captivity. A path toward freedom. Because every resentment asks consciousness to remain in the past. And every act of forgiveness allows awareness to return to the present. Perhaps this is why Jesus spoke about it so often. Not because forgiveness changes what happened, but because it changes what happens next. And that change can transform an entire life.